This conference will now be recorded.
No, I mean, I'm not sure they can produce it. I'm not sure they can produce it. I did read it, and I got actually, well, I mean, I read all of did all the summary and all that, it was really page, but the National Domestic Violence Awareness. Yeah, it's okay. What is that, Danny? Get it?
So before we call this meeting to order, I'd like to take a moment and recognize our city clerk, Arlene Sylvie. This is her last city council meeting. And so she is... We are truly grateful for her 49 years of service to this community. It's quite a big honor. Thank you, Arlene. Sorry. All right. We'll call this October 3rd meeting of the Sedalia City Council to order. We're going to start out with a prayer and pledge of allegiance. We can have Chaplain Matson please lead us in the prayer.
Would you stand at the table and join me in prayer? Dear Lord and Father of all, we come to you this evening to ask for guidance as the Sedalia City Council. Mayor, administrator, members, and staff meet in your office, discuss and make decisions for the betterment of our community and citizens. We thank them for their service and dedication to our city. We ask for protection for all our first responders, police, fire, sheriff, ambulance, EMTs, hospital staff, all who work day and night to serve and protect us, often at the peril of their own lives. We also are grateful for CASA, and this is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And CASA does, of course, so very much good for us. We bless all who work and volunteer for CASA. We are grateful for the United States of America, our constitutional republic, for which so many have fought and died to create and preserve for 246 years. We ask for blessing and protection for all military and civilians serving here and throughout the world today in service to our country, keeping us safe from threats from without, sadly, threats from within. And now as we leave tonight, please protect us and our loved ones. Keep us from harm until we meet again. And all this is prayed in the name of your Son, our risen Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Robinson,
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham,
Yes.
Marshall,
Here.
August, I'm sorry, Cross,
Here.
Foster, and Bliss.
Here. All right. The first item we have on the agenda is the official transfer of artifact from U.S. Department of Transportation and Maritime Administration to City of Sedalia. So some months ago, I was contacted via email by the U.S. Department of Transportation and Maritime Division. They had an artifact for us, and at first I thought, well, this has got to be spam. Turns out it wasn't. So they had an artifact for us from the Sedalia Victory ship. I'm going to go ahead and invite up Sedalia historian Rebecca Emhauser to go ahead and give us some history on this ship.
Thank you. I'm going to share this with you very point. First of all, it's exciting to be able to stand here and know that we are receiving an artifact that was made possible by us. The SS Sedalia Victory ship was fast harvested. It was faster than the predecessor Liberty ship, and it was manufactured during World War II to support the war. Only approximately 440 victory ships to manufacture, and our mine in Sedalia was the first one to be named for inclusion in the survey. And we were selected for that honor because of our war bond. We came together as a community, from school child to senior adults, to raise money for the war effort by buying war bonds. We brought many neighbors to Sedalia to the big stars. As a community, we worked so hard, so we could one way or another. Our ship was constructed as Veterans Fairfield Shipyard in Baltimore, Maryland, and we're going to hear from David Univac and a little bit of feedback. His family member, Hope Van Down Crawford, christened on January 11th, 1945. Now, when the war ended, you can imagine what it must have taken a story for 440 trade big partnership. A lot of them were explored in the long haul for office areas and configuration. Some of them were brought into service during the Vietnam and Korean War. At this point, there's really fewer than 5 left. Most of them were scrapped in the military process, and a few of them remaining ones are museums. So the main leader is to wanted to have a piece of our history ship for our community to signify all our community has done through the era, and especially the community. Thank you.
So now what I'd like to do, I did some late night Googling research, and we were actually, the original person that was in the ship was Mrs. John D. Crawford. And we have a descendant here of Mrs. John D. Crawford, Andy Van Dyke. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and invite him up to go ahead and unveil the ship's book. If I could go ahead and have we got some representatives from the American Legion, if I could get Rebecca up here and Danny's family, you can get a picture of that. I love that. I don't smell it, promise. And this will be on display publicly here at City Hall for a long time.
What's it look like?
Hey, turn it this way.
Yeah, turn it this way, Andrew.
Please. Oh, there you go. Cool. Nice. I'd rather have the whole ship.
Wouldn't fit. I think they could fit in a lot.
Put it down the hall.
Hi, thank you.
Cool, thank you, thank you.
Oh, cool.
Okay, let's see. All right, the next item we have on the agenda is a proclamation for CASA. We have members of CASA here. If you guys want to step up and in front of the dais, and we'll go ahead and read this. And recognize you. Yeah, come right on up here. However you want.
Oh, okay.
All right, on behalf of the city of Sedalia, we just want to thank you guys for everything that you do to advocate for and support those victims of domestic abuse. So we'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's right to privacy and dignity, security and humanity due to systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and/or abuse, including abuse to children and the elderly. And whereas the problems of domestic violence are not confined to any group or any groups of people, but cut across all economic, racial, and societal barriers, and are supported by the societal indifferences. And whereas the economic impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting individuals and society as a whole here in this community, throughout the United States and the world. And whereas it is battered women themselves who have been in the forefront of efforts to bring peace and equality to the home. And whereas a coalition of organizations has emerged to directly confront this crisis, law enforcement officials, those involved with shelters and hotline services, healthcare providers, the clergy, and other concerned citizens are helping in the efforts to end domestic violence. We must recognize the compassion and the dedication of these volunteers and professionals, applaud their efforts, and increase public understanding of this important problem. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Dawson, Mayor of the City of Sedalia, Missouri, do hereby proclaim October to be National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and urge all citizens to actively participate in the scheduled activities and programs to work towards improving victims' safety and holding perpetrators of domestic abuse accountable for their actions against individual victims and our society as a whole. Sorry. Next item we have on our agenda is service awards. I'll now invite up Chief Irwin to go ahead and present our service award for the evening.
Good evening, everybody. I know we have a busy night. Tonight, I am honoring Alex Serkin for 10 years of service to the Sedalia Fire Department. Alex, would you like to come up? His wife, Luba, is here and their kids. I think she really wanted to come up, but I don't know. So, I would like to take a moment to recognize Alex Serkin for 10 years of service to the City of Sedalia. When Alex first started with the Sedalia Fire Department, I really wasn't sure we were going to be able to keep him. His options were kind of limitless with what he wanted, where he could go in departments. Also, when Alex started at the Sedalia Fire Department, he broke a barrier. I'm not sure if he knows that or not. He was the first member of the department of a Slavic member. He broke that barrier with the department. His bilingual ability helped bridge the department to another section of the community that we really didn't have. Also, with his hiring, it opened up for many more members of the Slavic community to join either the Sedalia Fire Department or take our Fire 1 and 2 class and move on to other fire departments. Alex is a senior firefighter on the department as well as a time and title driver. I really enjoy Alex. He's a great guy. Sometimes we don't always see eye to eye, but we get through that. So congratulations, Alex. Congratulations.
Oh, congratulations, guys. Good job. Congratulations.
All right, the next item we have on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the council meeting dated September 19th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Now we have a roll call of the standing committees. Finance Administration, Chairman Marshall, you have the floor.
I have 5 items for consideration tonight. First one is, during our last council meeting, a resolution was passed requesting the annual report from Bothwell Regional Health Center. Management of Bothwell is here tonight to present an overview. At the conclusion of the presentation, a resolution has been prepared indicating the council's support of the healthcare system and to formally express our desire to maintain the healthcare system as independent and community-based. I'll turn it over.
Okay, thanks for inviting us. I'm Lori Whiteman. I'm proud to be the CEO of Bothwell Regional Health Center. And I forgot. My presentation tonight is in response to fulfill the requirements from the request for an annual report to the city. And you'll see what was asked to be included in that annual report. I did want to identify that the elements requested, is this on? Can you hear me okay? I feel like it's not on, is it? Okay.
You got it there. It was better when you got closer.
Okay, I'm going to swallow the mic. I do want to point out that the identified elements from the city for our annual report represents one of the many strategic objectives that we have as part of our 5-year strategic plan. My role tonight is to provide context for the financial results, where Steve Davis will be presenting the numbers. Running a rural hospital has never been for the faint of heart, yet this year the headlines are especially grim. And not just for rural hospitals, as 2022 is predicted to be the most difficult year financially for hospitals and health systems across the country since 2019. While knowing that we are not alone does not change the circumstances, it does illustrate that our situation is not unique. We, like other rural hospitals, are especially vulnerable due to not going into the pandemic from a position of strength. Our size contributes to higher overhead. Volume does not support the number of staff needed or physicians needed for either minimum staffing in a given department or for call requirements. So why is healthcare so different? Well, unlike a manufacturing company that makes widgets, where if the price of making widgets goes up, you just charge more for the widgets, we in healthcare are in essence on a fixed income. We can raise our charges all we want, yet Medicare and Medicaid and insurance companies will still pay us the same. In fact, 65% of our reimbursement is government entity, a combination of Medicare and Medicaid, and there's not any negotiating what they will pay us for the services. This original slide was done to illustrate all hospitals in the country, where comparing our, if you will, cost of doing business in 2019 as compared to 2021. And overall, the cost of doing business went up 17%. I had Steve do the calculation for us. Our cost of doing business was 30.6% in that same 2-year period. During this same time, we saw the cost of doing business going up 30.6%, yet we received an average of 3.5% increase from Medicare and a 3% increase from commercial payers. And so what happened in the last year that impacted financial stability? Well, we had 2 waves of COVID, and I have to tell you that Delta was horrible. It hit a younger population, and there were very many deaths. If you were sick enough to need to be put on a ventilator, only 30% survived or came off a ventilator. It really was a terrible time in the hospital. And then the Omicron wave hit, and while there was a lower percentage that needed a ventilator and a lower percentage of deaths, there was just so many people sick with Omicron variant. And it was at the height of when everyone was really frustrated and took that anger out on clinicians and caregivers. The pandemic turned up the volume on our nursing shortage that we had before the pandemic. Many nurses, respiratory therapists, and lab techs who were on the brink of retirement did retire during the pandemic. During the Delta wave, we made a conscious decision to staff all 9 of our ICU beds and all 16 of our PCU or step-down beds. To do that required spending $1.6 million in contract labor. ICU nurses were in high demand across the country during this time, and it was at this time that hourly rates for ICU nurses were at $240 an hour. If at all possible, we wanted to be there for those community members with COVID who needed acute care, especially since this was also the time where ICUs were full across the country. During Delta and especially Omicron, we were getting calls from Oklahoma, Iowa, Minnesota looking for ICU beds in particular. Today, we still have 30 contract staff in-house. 3 of those are respiratory therapists, 26 RNs, and 1 OR tech. We have gotten the hourly rate down that we pay agencies down to $110 for an RN. After Omicron, we saw more departures of RNs to join traveling agencies, to work for competitors that were offering higher wages or a sign-on bonus, coupled that with little or no applicants for RNs. So given all that, what options do you have when you're on a fixed income? Well, you have 3 options. You can reduce expenses, look for additional revenue opportunities, or beg for money, and we're doing all 3. In reducing expenses, we did decrease the staffed number of beds after we were sure Omicron wave was over. That annually saves us $3.3 million. We have eliminated some positions, and in fact, and my spacing's a little off there, and in fact, today I gave a 90-day notice to a physician. We are exploring a different health insurance model that will narrow our network. It will certainly decrease expenses, and it also has revenue opportunities for steering care that we can provide here to us. We have engaged our accounting firm in a consulting engagement. They are now called Forvis, with the specific result of enhancing our bottom line. In the first year, they have told us that consulting contract will produce $5 to $8 million in enhancement to our bottom line and $10 to $22 million over 3 years. In revenue opportunities, we want to convert 2 more of our clinics to rural health clinics. That is just an enhanced reimbursement for the services you're already providing, and focus on upfront cash collections. That means copays and deductibles, and not have the expense of sending out bills and being higher likelihood of collecting. We have already seen, but have not put a dollar figure to the increased imaging due to having a neurologist, which is a big deal to us, having a neurologist in town now. Opening durable medical equipment in Warsaw. Durable medical equipment is one of our cash producing businesses that we do. Increase clinic appointments that are available without increasing the number of staff or physicians to do that. We have a signed contract with an ENT that starts January 1st. And we have already received notice of a change in Medicaid reimbursement from the state, and that will produce an additional $3.6 million if our book of business remains the same. And we beg for money, since 65% comes from a government entity. Dr. Triplett and I just got back last week from Missouri Hospital Association sponsored rural advocacy trip to Washington, D.C., where we met with all of our congressional delegation and talked about what we thought of the identified already Medicare cuts that they are anticipating. We also are quite involved in state advocacy and any grant opportunity. Just last week, we were approved by MU for a $1.2 million grant that we will use for our medical students and also residents. We will use that to enhance the Healing Arts building to make it more conducive to having more of our family practice in one location, as well as conference rooms for the medical students. We are in the process of applying for state ARPA money under two different categories, workforce development and community revitalization for already spent or anticipated spending infrastructure, as well as education opportunities. And we have our FEMA list put together. We're working with a partner, and we are going to be requesting over $7 million. It's about $6.4 million. We have been told by our partner that is are legitimate things that have already been approved by FEMA. It's just a matter of when that FEMA money will arrive. And more and more healthcare will rely on philanthropy. And just last week, our Bothwell Foundation approved $1.2 million in projects. The bulk of that is a brand new CAT scanner for our main hospital and an upgrade to the CAT scanner in the cancer center. It is clear, and national consultants have said, that without appropriate support and evaluation of existing policies by the state and federal government, the rural hospitals will continue to be on life support. I did want to show that every decision we make on cutting expenses has consequences, and the decreasing the number of beds staffed was one that we gave quite a bit of thought to, but certainly it was not sustainable to staff all of our beds with, when the only way to staff them is with agency. So in the end of February, we decided to reduce the number of ICU beds that we staff from 9 to 6. And then in May, we reduced the number of medical surgical beds that we are staffing. Since those decisions were made, 32 people in our community had to be transferred out for hospitalization that we could have handled here. It's hard because when you have community members that actually need their community hospital and count on us, and then we don't have a staffed bed. But to have those high expenses of even $110 an hour is just not sustainable. Especially in a time when most hospitals are also looking at this, and it's becoming harder to find places they have an open staffed bed, especially with ICU beds. Okay, I've provided the context, and now I'm going to bring up Steve to go over specific numbers.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Davis. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the hospital. And I'm going to share some slides with you that Lori took to Washington, D.C. with the Missouri Hospital Association, and just showing some of the financial impacts that has occurred. Last year, this is what's called a growth. And so what we're comparing here is we have our budget. The green line at the bottom is our budget, and the blue line at the top is actual. We came out of the pandemic, the first wave of the pandemic. If you'll look to the left, you see that gap, the blue line and the green line are running parallel, but the blue line, which you want to see, is above. And that was running that way all the way up to October when Delta really hit hard. The big spike where it goes up to $6 million is where we received $4.7 million worth of CARES Act funds that we received as phase 3 of the CARES Act. That was the third and final payment that we got to the CARES Act. And it did exactly what it was meant to. It took us through the big spike of COVID, and you'll see that we finally crossed paths again with the green line, the budgeted line, and in February. That's when we still had a lot of contract labor, and as we started whittling it down to get to the staffing changes as Lori talked about. So the gap there we ended up the year $5.6 million. This was pre-audit numbers. $5.6 million on the gap. And again, we shared this with all of our partners in DC. So hopefully they could know. Had we not received the CARES Act funds, this is the next slide, you can see that gap went from $5 million to $10.2 million. And we would have had a deficit from operations of the negative $3 million. So the CARES Act funds, again, did exactly what they were meant to do, got us through the spike. So what do you do when you come out? So after our audit, we'll get to that in a little bit, the Board of Trustees, they're concerned about the cash and the well-being of the hospital itself as well. So we partnered with Forbes, formerly known as BKD, to do a cash burn analysis for us. And so what they did, it goes from, this is the exact report that they gave us. So it goes from right to left, starts in the year 2018. And you can see what our cash burn is and what it is. And I'll just highlight for you the colored items here. So basically, when you look at the blue line, that is how much cash per day that we are spending at the hospital over what we have income coming in. And then down at the bottom in the orange is how many days or how many years do we have left at that current rate if we keep spending at that current rate. And you can see that, as Lori said earlier, we did not enter the pandemic in a state of financial health. We were at 1.8 years left in 2019. COVID hit in 2020, and you got to look at those years remaining because it jumped to 7. Well, that's when we got our first round of CARES Act funds. That one was $6 million. The following year, we got $7 million in 2021, and we also received advance payments from the government to the tune of about $15 million. So after we came out of the pandemic, the CARES Act funds did just exactly what they were supposed to. We're basically the same place as we were in 2019. That number could range anywhere from 1.5 years to 2.4. So, and we're past this. This is looking at that as of May 31st, 2022. So, hence the $15,000 a day. Hence the need for, as Lori said, we need to have a $5 million improvement. That's how the math calculates that. And in this one, I apologize, it's a little hard to read. This is the actual audit report, and this is actually why we are here. I just went through and added the last 2 years so we keep the slides the same. So I just want to point out a couple of things on this particular slide. The first group of numbers is our revenue. And this is the one place where we are different than other rural hospitals. Most other rural hospitals have a declining revenue base. We do not. We're fortunate enough where we have an expanding revenue base. Since 2018, our revenues are up 30%, which is great. But then you look down to your expenses. Well, our salaries are up 22.5%. That's still, below our growth in revenue, which is good. Then there's two particular lines, purchase service and supply lines. 85% for one and 53% for the other. All our other expenses were only up 17%. Without having any funds coming in, we're not going to be able to purchase any major equipment. We've had to purchase some. We were able to purchase the HVAC system, which you guys approved a loan for, and the LINAC system that you guys approved a loan for. We feel very confident that we're going to get the HVAC system paid for by FEMA because it is to fight COVID. Okay? So that's one thing that we are applying for. Anyway, long story short, when you get down to the bottom, the last the last row of red numbers above the orange line, I just want to point out, you can see the losses. Okay, that is inclusive of operations and inclusive of the CARES Act funds that we receive. Okay, so what does that mean? How bleak is it? What can we do? Well, we know where we want to focus, and Lori already mentioned it on the contract labor piece. We're going to focus on the two orange lines here. Well, what's that in purchase service line? Contract labor from 2018 is at 356%, $12 million. Yeah, unsustainable. And as Lori had mentioned, we already had to close. We took a few beds down to 6. We took our med-surg to 24, and our short-stay unit is only open during the week to accommodate surgeries, so we don't lose any services to our residents. That's scary. But when you do that and you see these things, what else do you have to cut in order to get to that? This doesn't include the year before, after the first wave, we shut down the third floor. So you run that. We shut down the third floor, 3 Southwest and North. So trying to contain it. So where are we at? The other big item that we're trying to deal with is the cost of drugs now. If you take the supply line and you saw, okay, well, that's at 53%, you take the drugs out, they went up 91% in 5 years. The rest of the supplies is only 22%. Again, in line with the growth that we're having. So if we can control those two things, that's a big deal for us. 340B would be big for us. It's a program that the government has that allows hospitals that qualify with a big Medicaid base to get discounts on the drugs, and then the last audit would be around $2 million if we could get our drug prices discounted. However, we don't qualify for that. We're one of 5 hospitals, rural hospitals in the state that don't. And it's because they calculate, it's government math, but they calculate if you qualify based on your inpatient population to pay for outpatient drugs. Doesn't make any sense. We have a very underserved area. We have a lot of Medicaid patients here. However, they're not in the hospital. What's in the hospital are our elderly population. So our percentage of days is just this government calculus that we don't qualify. So we're trying to bring Forbes in, trying to find ways that we can tap into that 340B pricing and save some funds. So that's one of the focus areas that they're going to look at. And then we partner with a group called Forum. They do our group purchasing here with Health Trust. We're hooked up with them, and we're actually getting the same buying group as HCA hospitals, big for-profit. So they also manage hospitals across the country. And this is what they use to monitor what is the health of a hospital. Well, you can see that I've circled where we're at actually, Lori. We'll see what they're doing tonight. We circled days cash. As of the end of August, our days cash is 41. Okay? So puts us as a stressed hospital. Everybody's been to our hospital, you can see the average age of plant. It's an old hospital. The original hospital is 1930, and we built around it. So our average age of plant is 22. Okay? So again, that's a stressed hospital. Now the good part of it is, here's the strong part, is our debt. What is our long-term debt as a percentage of our assets and percentage of our net revenues? Well, it's 13% for assets and 8% for net revenues. So that part is strong. And our debt service coverage, where are we at there? It's 1.6. It's on the low side of stable, but still stable. And how do we fix this? We have to have a strong bottom line. EBITDA is earnings before interest, depreciation, and taxes It's actually cash that comes in as opposed to cash that goes out. So it's what's in your checkbook. We need a positive EBITDA. If we can get that turned around, and that's why we can engage Forbes, that's some of the measures that we talked about today. Lori's talking about that with the physician. And there's several other little things that are going to get us there. Medicaid is a huge thing for us, the way they change the payments. Our per diem rate has been the same for the state, for Medicaid, since 1999. It's been $769 a day. They upped it in July to $1,838. So it's a huge increase for us. Yeah, don't trust the government, they might take it away somewhere else. But anyway. So that's the state of where we are and how we compare to hospitals, rural hospitals across the country. And so at this point, that concludes where we are. Oh, sorry. The audit, we did complete our audit, and this is the results. This is the actual audit. It comes from page 16, I believe, on the actual audit. It'll have the 3 years on there, and I added the other 2. But it completed, they did, as a going concern, that was a question we had. Do you feel a hospital is in trouble with a going concern? And they said at that point, no. Because their definition is a going concern, are you going to be here at the same time next year? And so their answer was yes, but we would have to make these changes. And so with that, then we asked them to do the cash burn analysis. That includes the COVID numbers, but it's just a good numbers of research to go back. And at 2.4, if nothing else changed, we'd be at 1.4 next year. So again, hence, that's why we incorporated the services of Forbes as far as their cost reduction team. And they'll come in and they're going to look at all of our specific line items and have some recommendations for us. And they will be on site next week. That's it. Any questions?
I do have a couple questions, if I may. First of all, thank you for the presentation, both of you. And I noticed that you averted to COVID. The reason why these numbers are like they are is because of COVID. So then I ask you, what was the impact of financial stability before COVID? Were you stable financially before COVID hit? When was the last time you were operating out of the red?
It was 2018 on the EBITDA. So on the earnings before. So that's, as far as cash coming in and cash going out, it's 2018. And before that, I believe it was 2017 where we actually had positive numbers. So,
what happened in 2018?
What did you say? What happened? What did you just say?
I couldn't hear you. I'll finish your question. What happened in 2018? Before me, but.
Yeah. In 2018, that's when we were bringing on a lot of physician practices. That was when we were in our growth mode, and we were buying a lot of existing practices here in town. And so then, just kind of put a cash crunch on it. We put some more physicians in. It takes about 3 years to build a practice. Now, the ones in town are already established. But when we brought in new providers, that's basically what it was. It's part of the growth mode. And then COVID came, and so everything went out the window. Nobody went to the doctor. That's why we got all the CARES Act funds, those kind of things, in order to get us through that month. And basically, they did that. And we consciously made the choice to stay open, even though we knew it was going to drain our bottom. So, or not open, but I mean, to remain 9 beds in CCU, 16.
Correct my memory if I'm incorrect, that I think 2020, before COVID, we were monthly, we were doing pretty well. We were hitting budget, actually above budget. And I think that was one of those like
2021, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually had turned the corner, and we're coming back. You can see right here, we were coming back on a positive direction, and then that's when Delta, if you see Lori's slide, that mirrors exactly when Delta came.
Not financially, but I've seen a lot of new physician turnover. Do you know why that is? I, for instance, go to Bothwell Healing Arts, and I've had 4 different doctors, and I'm like, good gracious. So,
I agree with that.
what is that?
Some of it was due to the pressure we put on, to see patients and, make the clinic profitable. Some of it was due to that.
So you,
That's exactly why I gave a 90-day notice today.
okay, you're
to a
thinking that is
physician.
because of an increased workload that they were leaving, or a decreased workload?
They weren't making, their reimbursement coming in was less than what we were paying them.
Their targeted business is different. The other thing that makes the physicians nowadays more mobile, they're not taught to run their own practice in med school anymore. They come in, when physicians came to the community, that's what was so nice about in '85, when I got to the hospital. You think of all the young doctors that Dr. Wilson, Dr. Frederiksen, Dr. Bill Wollery, Dr. Woolner, Dr. Foster, I mean, you can just go on. They were young in '85, and they came here, they owned their own buildings, they owned their own AR, and so they had ties here. These new physicians nowadays, they come out of school, they sign a 2-3-year contract, and all of a sudden, okay, that's done, so I can go get a sign-on bonus here for $50,000 to $100,000, and they leave, and they don't, it's not their AR anymore, it's ours now. You know, it's not their building anymore, they don't have to worry about something. So it's just changed the landscape.
I think Forbes described it as those older doctors, they ate what they killed.
Yeah.
New doctors.
Well, and the rule of thumb now is that it takes 1.7 new physicians to replace one that is retiring, just because of this whole work-life balance. They're just not killing themselves, you know, like, we know of some that are still working, that they're never home. That is, I think it's, if not the number one, maybe number 3 hardest specialty to recruit. They like to go to urban areas and have a large urology group practice, and there's not even a surplus of them in Columbia or Jefferson City or Kansas City that they can deploy somebody to. So if anyone knows a urologist, but you know, we didn't think we'd have a neurologist either, and he literally fell from the sky. And we're just so fortunate. And ENT is also another, and we just signed the ENT.
And in the new world, the physicians, when you talk to them, they bring them here, okay, our bylaws require you to be on call 1 in 10, and they like to go to a group where they're on call maybe every other weekend, or, you know, 2-3 days
1 in
a month.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, and when you're here by yourself, you know, if we can only have one urologist, we love Dr. Foster, he's on call every day. You know,
But I don't give up hope on a urologist, because I just got a name of a young guy, 2nd year residency in urology. He has 1 year left, and he wants to practice in a rural area. So.
How much did you say, we got from the CARES Act?
well, we got 3 different funds, or 3 different rounds, $6 million in 2020, $7 million in 2021, and $4.7 in 2022.
Those are fiscal years.
Those are fiscal years. Yeah, those on gifts.
Okay.
Yeah. On the line.
Perfect. I want to thank you guys for coming to do this presentation. It helps me a lot. I think that Bothwell is a great asset to our community, and it's very important that we stay laser focused to be sure that we keep it here, because I know it is a huge, huge asset, and I know that you guys, I have faith you're going to do everything you can to keep it open and running for our community.
We asked for a facility maintenance plan earlier this year. Do you have an idea of when we might be able to see see that, with the facility
I
maintenance.
think you're talking about the facilities master plan.
Yes.
Oh, that is very much a work in progress. In fact, we just had another meeting, today, and so, yeah, it's really depressing. It's all figures that, no matter what option you take of, and that's really what the long-term goal of any changes we make operationally is, so that we can have some hope of a replacement facility.
And how far out did you say that was?
Well,
We had, meeting number 6, I believe. Now we're just trying to figure out how we get the
Path forward.
Yeah, there's no easy answers there either. I mean, actually, they're probably even harder than.
well, I think I had the proposal of you keep buying lottery tickets, and because right now, they started with everything that would be in the perfect world. Well, that dollar figure is like 110 million. Well, okay, that's not going to work. So now we're dealing with working with what we have and what we own. What does it look like?
To answer your question, healthcare is different now than it was in 1985 when they built that big wing on the hospital. Currently, we have like 307,000 square feet in the hospital proper. In the new hospital world, we think we'd only need 150. But, in order to bring everything to code, once you start to remodel, and all of a sudden you got to bring everything to the new Joint Commission standards and those kind of things. But it is a different blueprint, and it's going to, I think, continually move more and more to the outpatient world. So.
And our architects are saying to look at a $650 to $750 cost per square foot for hospital grade construction.
So bricks and mortar is a problem, and that's what his basic question was, how are we going to create a master plan that helps us with that issue? Certainly, you should be looking at virtual medicine, I'm sure you are, but that in itself requires some facility on campus too. I guess I'm pretty well, kind of think I know where you're going. I guess the last question I have is, several months ago, we talked about a clinic in East Sedalia, and I think we approved and you bought that property, but I'm not aware of any progress there. We're doing almost all of the construction with our in-house facilities people, and that is maybe number 4 on their list, and they were anticipating the timeline for the walk-in part of that to be October, November. You said that like it was past tense, and that goal's not going to be met. Is that still what we're kind of shooting for?
Yeah, that's still good.
Yeah. We have to finish the residency. We got a grant from
Yeah, Dr. Frederick.
And for like 40,000.
Well, we moved ortho.
Right.
Oh.
We're moving out of buildings that we lease into buildings that we own, and that ortho was a major construction for them.
So we got plenty of bricks and mortar, right? We got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Any further council discussion? Well, having heard that, we'll call for the reading of the resolution.
Resolution number 1987, a resolution of the City Council of Sedalia supporting the independent city health system known as Fauquier Regional Health Center, directing staff of the City of Sedalia to explore all options to support the local city-owned health system.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council, and thank you, CFO Davis and CEO Whiteman for coming down and giving that presentation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Second item I have is the library board has adopted a motion to amend its budget. The majority of the amendment is to move funds from full-time personnel to part-time.
Any council discussion? Having heard none, call for the reading of the resolution.
Resolution number 1988, a resolution authorizing a change in budgeted expenditures for the fiscal year 22-23 relating to the library personnel and supply expenses.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We also have an ordinance in connection to this matter. Call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2022-164, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 22-23 regarding the library personnel and supply expenses.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Bill number 2022-164, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 22-23 regarding the library personnel and supply expenses.
Final passage. Second.
Roll call, please.
Bliss?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Bogus?
Yes.
Cross?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
All in favor.
The third item I have is the city has received an offer for an option to purchase about 5 acres of land that the city purchased from Union Pacific. The offer is for $25,000 per acre, which is the price at which the city bought it. This offer is keeping with the planned use of the property.
Any council discussion? Having heard none, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2022-165, an ordinance ratifying the city's approval of an option agreement for the purchase of property located at 627 East Fifth Street.
Second reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Bill number 2022-165, an ordinance ratifying the city's approval of an auction agreement for the purchase of property located at 627 East Fifth Street.
Final passage.
Second. Roll call, please.
Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Bogus?
Yes.
Cross?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Bliss?
Yes.
All in favor.
Fourth item I have is the buyers of the Spring Fork Lake property approached staff about purchasing an extension of the closing date. It has taken longer than expected to put together the deals and they have missed their build season. They have proposed to extend the closing date to March of next year and have agreed to pay $400,000 for this extension. This amendment does not extend the due diligence period that has already passed.
Any council discussion regarding this? Having heard none, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2022-166, an ordinance ratifying the city's approval of an amendment to the contract for sale of real estate commonly known as Spring Fork Lake.
Second reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Bill number 2022-166, an ordinance ratifying the city's approval of an amendment to the contract for sale of real estate commonly known as Spring Fork Lake.
Final passage.
Second. Roll call, please.
Oldham?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Bogus?
Yes.
Cross?
Yes.
Foster?
No.
Bliss?
Yes.
And Robinson.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have, Foster was no, right?
Correct.
Okay. 6 no and 6 yes and 1 no.
And the final item I have is, as we continue to deal with the ongoing effects of the Great Resignation, staff has put together a concept that was presented to the Finance and Administration Committee called Stay Pay. I would like to let Administrator Shaw go over this presentation with the council.
Great, thank you, sir. Basically, we are not immune to the effects of the Great Resignation and the events that partially that we talked about with the hospital, maybe to a lesser degree, but we are not immune to those. In the past, the city was able to compete fairly well in the labor market from a standpoint of benefits. Typically, our wages were a little bit lower than the market, but our benefits were much better as far as the private industry. And then that's also coupled with, we have a varying labor markets that we participate in. For example, when we're competing for police and fire, we're competing with other cities or other governments that employ policemen and firemen. But then when we're competing with, for trying to hire a backhoe driver, we're competing more with the private sector. And so, that balance between benefits and labor is much different when you're looking across those different labor markets. With the Great Resignation, though, that really made a lot of changes or upset that balance quite a bit, because at that point, essentially, employers started doing essentially bidding wars. Everybody is short of staff. The last stat I heard was there's 2 open jobs for every job seeker. So it's highly competitive for people to even get the minimum staffing that they need to keep their businesses open and going. And so they're doing things like sign-on bonuses and, just increasing the pay. They're doing daily pay, all kinds of things. Everybody's getting real creative in how they're recruiting employees. With that, for our employees, it not only got harder to recruit new employees, but some of our employees are leaving to go take advantage of those bidding wars that the private sector is doing, to include police and fire. We've had a few police and fire that leave the profession just to go take advantage of those high dollars. I don't blame them a bit, but that's the situation that we're in. And then most certainly in the case of Public Works, we are really at a critical situation with Public Works where we are having, again, we're competing for those folks with really more of the private sector than anyone else. And we're really down to a point to where it's hard to keep things going, like the water department, the sewer department, the street department, and not to mention all of the mowing and those kinds of things that we have to do to maintain those. So we are getting behind, and we are down. I think the last number I heard, we were down 20 employees in Public Works. And so we're really working with the skeleton crew. And if it continues, then that's going to get increasingly more difficult. We did have some good news. We had last week we did a open interview process that was way beyond my expectations as to what we were able to do. We were able to hire 7 employees, I think, that day, and then 2 more since then. So it really helps, but again, it's we still have the ongoing challenge of people are recruiting them away from us as well. My belief is that this pendulum too will swing. It will swing back. My concern, though, or my problem is I don't know when that will happen, and I don't know how far it's going to swing out and how far it's going to swing back. I firmly believe we're headed for, if we're not already in a recession. Believe it or not, for us, recessions are kind of good because when the private sector is laying off, there is kind of a rush to safety or stability, and that is something that we can offer that businesses have more of a challenge to offer in terms of stability. You can go to work for a company and, maybe that company gets sold. Maybe they lose a contract, and so then they start laying off employees, those kinds of things. And so that stability is one of the things that we can sell that in the labor market to our employees that helps us recruit employees maybe at a little bit lesser of a wage, but again, with better benefits, and one of those benefits being stability. So now, on the other hand, though, the recession is not good for us in that we are a sales tax-driven community, so our budget is highly dependent upon sales tax. So recessions cause us to have less money coming in, or less revenues coming in than we did before. So The difficulty here is figuring out a short-term strategy that doesn't upset the long-term and doesn't narrow our options for when that pendulum does swing back, or as I say it, as when the dust settles, we'll be able to figure out what really we need to do on a longer-term basis. So what we kind of have tossed around in staff and with the mayor, and then also with the Finance and Administration Committee today, is what I call stay pay. And it's kind of takes off of, it's really a retention bonus, if you will, or recruiting bonus kind of wrapped up in one, or a sign-on bonus. And what we're proposing is that we would pay a lump sum of $500 if they stay for the quarter. And what we're looking at is, since our budget year is 3/31 of 2023, is we would look to council to approve a plan that would basically put this in place to pay out December 1, which December 1, the reason for that is to try to get, a little cash in their pocket, which might be handy around the holiday season. And then again, March 1. That would then put that carrot out in front of the employees that says, hey, if you're still here on December 1, you'll get a check for $500, or you'll get $500 added to your paycheck. And then again, if you're still here March 1, then you'll get another $500. So essentially, they get another $1,000 paid by the end of this fiscal year. The total cost citywide would be to do that, and that includes the loggers, FICA and work comp and all of those kinds of things that go with gross wages, would be $326,000 for that, essentially $1,000 for every employee, full-time employee. And then to the general fund, that would be $185,800. Some of that cost would be offset with that, like I said, right now we're down 20 employees in public works, so not all of the employees will be here, not all of them will stay through December 1 or through March 1. And we've been down throughout the year, so we've had some of those that cost avoidance, if you will, or payments that we haven't made. So some of that would be done. However, that is going to be a little bit difficult to calculate exactly where that's going to land, but I did want to point out that not all of that is added cost. I question a couple of things as I try to deliberate through this. Is this the right thing to do? And a couple of big questions I keep asking myself. There is, in my opinion, a cost of doing nothing. If we continue as we are, it's just going to continue to get worse. So what would we have to do if we did nothing, if we didn't do this? So I make that question. Also, I think, well, instead of doing something like this, why don't we just roll that into wages? Why don't we just give everybody an increase now to try to essentially offset the bidding war, or participate in the bidding war with the private sector? I think that would be very difficult to do, because first of all, I don't know how far you're going to have to go to participate in that bidding war. I'm hearing numbers that really we couldn't make work in our budget. It's certainly long term we wouldn't be able to make it work in our budget. So we would have to look at it from a standpoint of we'd have to reduce the number of staff to be able to pay a higher rate to the remaining staff. And to do everything that we're doing, we can't do that without reducing services. So then, at that point, where do we reduce services? Man, that's, you know, you're gonna have to make some really tough choices to be able to get into that. The other thing with that, to me, is again, that's a longer-term solution thrown at what I think is a shorter-term problem. And so, if you give it to them, to our employees as wages today, if you have to look at it as taking that back in the future, that's going to be awful tough to do. The other thing is, you know, since their funding is finite, you could look at, well, again, we pay a lot more in benefits than we do, the private sector typically does, and they can spend more in wages. So then you look at that structure, you know, should we stop some of these benefits and give it to them in wages so that we're participating in the bidding war? I think short term, yeah, that probably would help us. Longer term, though, then we're going to be competing purely on wages. And like I said, in the past, we were able to compete very well on benefits with a little bit less in wages. And again, when you're competing for police and fire, which, let's face it, that's a good share of our employment base, and that's a huge part of our primary government services is public safety. That, in my opinion, is the thing that we need to do first and foremost, is keep the citizens safe. So then when we start trying to compete again with other cities, we're all messed up. Our benefit structure is much different than theirs, and so then again, we're having a hard time competing. So with that, we talked with the Finance and Administration Committee today. They essentially voted to bring this forward, but I would throw this out for council discussion, direction. I guess my recommendation is that you would direct staff to bring you back a budget amendment for formal consideration at the next meeting. That's my recommendation, but I certainly would be interested in everybody's thoughts and concerns, and I did.
Well, I think this is all good back to $500, but, would we continue to do this for a year or two, or?
Yeah, thank you. I left that piece out. The concept is that we would do this for, you know, the December 1 and the March 1. And then the date there, March 1, is about when we will be bringing you a budget for next year. Hopefully the dust has settled a little bit. We got a little bit more information. So then we can look at, okay, how much do we want to plow into wages? Do we want to continue this? Is it working? Do we want to do something different? So my hope is that the dust has settled a little bit. We can roll some of it into wages and then stop this going forward and let it settle down. But again, my crystal ball is a little fuzzy.
Yeah. I want to make sure I understand. Talking about all full-time employees?
Yes.
Okay, that's one comment. The second comment is I kind of remind everybody, most of us were at MML, and there was a slide that the Bureau of Labor Statistics presented, and basically, off the top of my head, the smallest bubble was 18 to 25, and it was way to the left with regards to ability to work, which I assume would be training, and willingness to work. And then the biggest bubble, I think, was the group that almost counts me up to 65. Mm-hmm. I mean, the size of the bubble actually was. So demographically, we got a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you take...
and it may not be over with in a year or two.
But if you take your baby boomers represent a larger segment of the workforce than generations X, Y, Z, and millennials all combined together.
So I would encourage us to really watch closely with the State Bureau of Labor Statistics and maybe think about some type of incentive fund every year for the next couple of years. And maybe it's this amount, but we may adjust those incentives some way year to year to better fit what we encounter. Because I don't think the dust is going to settle in 2 quarters.
Yeah, you know, again, part of how we compete or have it competed in the past is we tend to get more career-minded employees that are interested in that defined benefit contribution plan. And so, not to pick on Arlene, but one of the things that we learned at MML is one of the strategies is to get people to come back after retirement to stay longer.
No, I agree, but the other side of it is, you're paying them $500 every quarter, you get them trained up and you want to keep them, maybe you pay them $3,000 or $4,000 every 5 years. I mean, you can adjust that to some degree. Just don't stay married to $500 every quarter.
Any other council discussion?
I was in the finance committee earlier, and, I kind of played the devil's advocate a little bit with that, but ultimately, short term, I think this is a good approach. One, it shows appreciation to our staff that they are staying through this great resignation when it could be extremely easy. But long term, I would really like, when it comes time, when we're presenting the budget, to see a strong approach to the COLA and to the benefit package. Because ultimately, that bonus is fantastic. But then again, with the private sector as competitive the way it is, that may not mean as much as somebody who can leave and get $4 or $5 more an hour easily. So I agree that we should approach this. It's a great start, but I would really urge staff and administration to look at a strong COLA and benefit approach.
And that's something that was touched on in that committee meeting too, as far as retention. So this is a retention tool that benefits the lower end of the wage scale where we're having the most retention problems, but at the same time, it doesn't create any wage compression. So, it would be a good deal. Do I get any objections to going forward with this?
Yeah, I think, one of the problems is, people that are looking for, jobs, employment, they're just looking at the money up front. They're not looking at the long-range retirement. And I think we have an excellent retirement program here in Sedalia for people. They just don't seem to look at that, They want the money up front, so that's our problem.
We also are in a generation, the younger generation, that likes the remote work, or work remotely, or likes a shorter work week. That's just sort of things that maybe we might need to look at also, just stay competitive with the younger workforce. That's a hard pill to swallow for many like myself who understand the 5-day work week, who understand the salary range, but it's a progressive approach we begrudgingly may have to take.
Yeah, and I hear you, and the difficulty is the majority of the jobs that we are having difficulty with, they can't work remotely. You can't have a police officer working remotely. You can't have
You can't do that, Chief?
You can't have a backhoe operator working remotely.
That's very true too.
So and now we do have some remote work, but those typically, knock on wood, are not the positions we're having difficulty with.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
You need a motion to move forward?
I don't think so. If we don't hear any objections, we'll go ahead and move forward.
We'll bring you back an ordinance for your consideration at the next week.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
That's all I have, Your Honor. All right, up next we have Public Works Chairman Oldman. You have the floor.
Yeah, I only have one item tonight, and it's a work change order for the pitless adapter for well number 19. It was found out to be damaged, so that work order is going to be $39,113.
Any council discussion regarding this? Having heard none, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2022-167, an ordinance authorizing change order number 1 for the repair and replacement of pitless adapter water well number 19.
Second reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Bill number 2022-167, an ordinance authorizing change order number 1 for the repair and replacement of pitless adapter water well number 19.
Final passage?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Marshall?
Yes.
Bogus?
Yes.
Cross?
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham.
Yes.
All in favor?
Thank you, Chairman Oldham.
Thank you.
Next, we have Community Development. Chairman Foster, you have the floor, or Chairwoman Foster, you have the floor. Sorry.
Thank you. I just have one item tonight. It is a street name change for North Montauk Avenue to W.T. Morris Avenue. During our meeting on August 15th, we reviewed a petition and adopted a resolution declaring the desire to change the name of North Montauk to W.T. Morris Avenue. As required by state statute, this resolution was then published in the paper notifying interested parties of the process to protest such a change. We did not receive enough protests to preclude the change. In fact, we did not receive any. So now, you may consider adopting an ordinance making that change in the name of the street.
Do you have any council discussion? Having heard none, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2022-168, an ordinance to change the name of North Montauk Avenue, extending from West Main Street to West Clay Street to W.T. Morris Avenue in the city of Sedalia, Missouri.
Second reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Bill number 2022-168, an ordinance to change the name of North Montauk Avenue, extending from West Main Street to West Clay Street to W.T. Morris Avenue in the city of Sedalia, Missouri.
Final passage?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Bogus,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you, Chairwoman Foster. Up next, we have Public Safety. Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
We have two items to discuss. The Sedalia 200 School District has decided to expand their school resource officer program within the district to Smith Cotton Junior High. The Sedalia Police Department has been working with school officials to create an agreement to provide this SRO. That agreement is in detail in your packet. The agreement has been approved by Sedalia 200 Legal Counsel and the Lauber Municipal Law. Sedalia 200 recently passed the agreement in their regular session board meeting on September 25th. Chief, would you like to say anything about this in particular? I think it's self-explanatory in your thing there.
Any council discussion? Having heard none, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2022-169, an ordinance authorizing a school resource officer cooperative agreement.
Second reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Bill number 2022-169, an ordinance authorizing a school resource officer cooperative agreement.
Final passage?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Bogus,
Yes.
all in favor.
Crowd control barricades. During budget planning, city administration budgeted for purchasing crowd control barricades to help keep pedestrians safe during special events. The police department has gotten bids on this, and the bids closed on the 27th. These are evidently more attractive also, besides maybe being safer than what we have. Anyway, we have two bids. Only one can deliver during the next 90 days. The bid's under the budgeted amount. It's in there also.
Any council discussion regarding this?
I'm super excited about these. I know when we do the parades, there are some of us that walk, and I know Rachel and I always stay really close to the side because a lot of kids are excited to try to get candy, and we can't throw it, so we have to stay as close to keep them safe, and this will be great.
Yeah, this will hopefully keep a lot of, especially during the Christmas parade, you'll notice people spill out into Ohio, get closer and closer to all those moving vehicles, and they'll hopefully prevent any accidents. It's kind of been an accident waiting to happen.
How about the dark, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it in the dark. I love the Christmas parade.
Yeah,
I think it's
I agree.
awesome.
Having heard no further discussion, call for the reading of the ordinance.
Bill number 2022-170, an ordinance approving and accepting a quote for crowd control barricades.
Second reading?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Bill number 2022-170, an ordinance approving and accepting a quote for crowd control barricades.
By the passage?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Bogus,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
all in favor.
Okay, up next we have appointments. Call for the reading of the appointments.
Okay, to members of the City Council from Mayor Andrew Dawson, new appointments, Sedalia Public Library Board, Dana Foster, completing Susan Mitchell Callis's term ending June 30, 23, and Sedalia Redevelopment Corporation Board of Directors, Chris Marshall, completing Jeff Lehman's term ending 11/22, Brianna Foster replacing Andrew Dawson's term ending 10/23, and Lucas Richardson completing Chris Marshall's term ending 11/22.
Motion to approve in block.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Let's see.
And then I have one more.
All right.
It was done a reappointment to the Sedalia Area Tourism Commission, and it was Erica Eisenmenger. It was done as a 3-year term, January 1, 22 to December 31, 25 in air. It should be a 3-year term, January 1, 23 to December 31, 26.
Do you just need to state that, or do we need a motion to approve it?
A motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Up next, we have liquor license. Call for the readings of the liquor licenses.
Okay, this evening we have one new license, Marshall Limas doing business at State Fair Floral, 520 South Ohio, for Ducks Unlimited Banquet at Missouri State Fairgrounds in the Ag Building on October the 15th, 22. It's a picnic license. And then the remaining are all renewals. Janice Ulmer doing business at Sedalia Elks Lodge, 320 South Kentucky for Liquor by the Drink and Sunday sales license. Teresa R. Moore doing business as Rudy's Discount Smoke Shop, 3040 West Broadway for a packaged liquor and Sunday sales. Paul Bykirk doing business as County Distributing, 1800 Eagle View Drive for a wholesale beer license. Kevin Long doing business as Loyal Order of the Moose, 119 Winchester for Liquor by the Drink. Minerva Perez doing business as El Tapatio, 3000 South Limit for Liquor by the Drink and Sunday sales. Chancey Sherman doing business as Chance's Bar and Grill at 303 South Lamine, Liquor by the Drink and Sunday sales license. And Jennifer Edwards doing business as End Zone Sports Bar and Grill, 3129 West Broadway for the Liquor by the Drink and Sunday sales.
Motion to approve in block.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next we have miscellaneous items from Mayor, City Council, and City Administrator. Send thoughts and prayers out to those in Florida that are suffering from hurricane.
And the Carolinas.
Carolina, yeah. Bad deal.
Terrible.
Anybody got anything else? Well, having heard none, we will now open the good and welfare portion of the meeting. Is there any members of the audience who would like to address City Council on anything? If you could go ahead. Yep. Go ahead and step to the microphone up here. And then if you could state your name and your address at the beginning, and then you've got 3 minutes.
Home address or?
What's that?
Home address?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here together.
Okay.
I'm Debbie Bierman. Home address is 1398 Cobblestone, Sedalia.
Thank you.
I'm Jill White. My home address is 27223 Green Road, Sedalia.
Thank you.
Deborah Anderson, I live in Marshall, in South Grand.
Thank you.
Carolina Porter, I put up, street, 20679,
Thank you.
and 3305.
Thank you.
We're present tonight regarding the potential of the Mercy Rest Stop within the Katy Depot neighborhood, and to express our concern for the safety of staff and of our approximately 12,000 annual visitors for concern of the security of the building and grounds, and the residual effect that this will have on all that the Katy Depot represents. The Katy Depot project actually began in 1996. It was the 100th anniversary of the depot. It had sat in disrepair for, at that point in time, approximately 30 years. The project began and remains a collaborative partnership between three of the leading not-for-profits engaged in business and tourism support and development. Those are the Sedalia Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Sedalia Heritage Foundation. The project took 6 years. It took $3.1 million investment to complete it, and in the past 20 years that the building has been operating, there's been another $1 million invested in the building's upkeep and enhancement. The restoration and operation continues to receive national recognition. You know, we understand the process that this is going through. We wanted to be here tonight to kind of represent our individual concerns and provide a little bit more detail on where we're coming from as the folks that work at the Katy Depot.
Okay, I'm the site manager there, which means I'm kind of the first one you'll deal with, good or bad. And I've been there 10 years. Before that, I worked for 15 years for the state parks, managing 2 different state parks. So I'm pretty used to dealing with the public at all levels. I deal a whole lot with the problems that come along with where we're at. Being along the Katy Trail, we have a lot of transient people that come by because we are a nice big building with lots of roomy shade with our overhangs and benches. We have a lot of people taking advantage of that. And I came tonight and I have a very long list of things that I could show you that I deal with daily. I'm going to save that for next week's planning and zoning meeting. But I'd like you to consider, I heard what Kelvin Shaw said about the stay pay and the Great Resignation. And we know it's hard to keep good employees. And where we work, there's several of us, we don't ask for a lot. We don't go asking for raises from our boards. We don't go saying, I'm going to walk out if I don't get what I want and I want health benefits. Things of the basic things that some of you all have. We don't even necessarily have those. We want to work in a safe location. And we're on the verge of it not being that right now. I can go into detail when you want them. But so all we're really asking is for you to think about it when you say it's the city's first priority is public safety. Well, 3rd Street is not always a safe place. And where I work is not always a safe place. And we think that's a huge issue. We think a place like Mercy Rest Stop, although it's great intentions, I'm not saying it's not, we feel like if you build it, they will come, and they will come in bigger numbers, and anything you want more of, you make it easier to happen. And so that's where I stand.
I'm Deborah Andreessen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Sedalia Chamber. On a daily basis, it is a big concern when we have our members come in with their families or they're just coming in as an individual. If there is homeless people outside, I'll just give you a quick little example. It was last week, my daughter and I was leaving the depot. We had a homeless gentleman approach us asking for money. And whenever we walk out of the building, one of the biggest concerns is there's like a little hole there, and sometimes they set in there. So as a woman, when you're coming out of the building, you don't always know what you're going to walk into. And as Jill stated, she can give more details on that next time we come. But just not just the safety issue, but also the depot is a very beautiful landmark that we have in Sedalia, and I think everyone just needs to look at that and realize that there could be some repercussions, of what that would entail if we open that up to different individuals individuals that maybe have, not the greatest intentions for our building. And that's all I have. Carolyn?
Yes, and I'm Carolyn Crooker, and I'm the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which some of you may know. I do go out, I recruit groups, visiting groups to come to Sedalia. I give tours to those people, trying to recruit their convention or their meeting or their group to come to Sedalia. I take them to the things that I'm proud of, to the eye candy, so to speak. The Sedalia Convention and Visitor does work hard for that. And the Katy Depot is a beautiful historic landmark for us with a wonderful history. The Katy Trail also, that trailhead is right there, and the bicyclists that use that, and we do have a lot of bicyclists that come and use that, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. And I fear for, anything that would happen to have that built in this location would only escalate maybe a deterrent of the progress that we have made.
I'm Michelle Quattlebaum. I'm here with these ladies because there's a lot of businesses talking in the background, because you hear one thing and then you hear another thing, and, a lot of business owners are confused on what's really going to happen, if we should be concerned or not. But, I don't know if this is the time to plead my case, but really, I hope that you think about it. How would you feel if you were sitting at home and your neighbor came over to talk to you and said, hey, did you hear they're going to put a homeless shelter back behind our houses here in a couple weeks? I don't think anyone would feel too safe knowing that. I know, again, everyone has good intentions, but, as a business owner, I bring my money and my business and my passion and my, that's my life down there, because I want my kids to have a beautiful town to grow up in. I believe in this town, and I just don't think bringing something like that, it's bringing outsiders into our community, and we don't know what these outsiders are going to bring. And also, as a mom down at the venue, there's times where I come out and I have my 2 little daughters with me, and we're trying to go to the car, and there's homeless guys coming up to us. And, the few that I do know, now that I've gotten to know them, they're harmless. But the last thing I want is to be scared going back and having people come to weddings at the venue, and, there's homeless people approaching them, even coming, they're packing up stuff into their cars, and then there's 2 guys standing behind them. That's not the reputation I want to get out. So I just hope that you think about it while you're discussing it, what could possibly be brought in and what issues that could bring negative issues to our town. So thank you.
Thank you guys for coming down and sharing your thoughts and concerns. Is there anyone else who'd like to address council?
Renee Vance, 19813 Tanglenook Road. As an outside observer, or a non-lifelong resident, I have been able to talk to a few groups, and it's been brought to my attention there may be some racial profiling going on, and I was just concerned if there was a possibility of a board where you have some civilian interaction, if there is some cases like that. And it's just something, I don't know if the town has got enough, since we are class 3, I don't know what.
35.
Yeah.
Can you expand on the racial profiling?
If you are of a skin color and are driving a nice car, depending on, it doesn't matter what time of day, you're going to get pulled over for something. And I think we're better than that. And I'm not trying to cause a problem, but we need to be aware in order to fix it. So that was just a suggestion.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you, Renee.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address council? Come on up, Ms. Fowler.
Stella Frazier. On a positive note, I would like to see the city, bring in some kind of a family, type of entertainment center. You know, we have like Lincoln has a bowling alley, and it's smaller than Sedalia. And I would like for Sedalia to bring in like sort of like a main event where they have bowling alleys and arcade for the kids, you know, instead of all these restaurants. And that's just my thing.
Well, we'll work on that as hard as we can. I think that's all.
Ms. Frazier, there's several things coming up at the community center that some cost a little bit, some are free. Check that. Halloween stuff at the community center would be, I know it's not a full-time facility, but spread the word. Oh, I know, I agree.
We'd love to get a bowling alley. Any other, comments from the audience? Well, having heard that, I'll entertain a motion to move the.
Motion to move to close door session for legal advice on real estate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, what? Roll call. Yeah, gotta be.
Robinson? Oldham?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Bogus?
Yes.
Cross? Cross?
Yeah.
Foster? And Bliss?
Yes.
I didn't hear him. I would love to have that, thank you. Thank you. You're looking
This conference will now be recorded.
Give it a break. Okay, do I have a motion second to,
Motion to open.
reopen regular meeting? Second. Roll call, please.
Hold on.
What's your last roll call?
Okay, Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
Oldham?
I'll miss you.
Marshall?
Yes.
Bogus? Cross?
Yes.
Foster? And Bliss.
Okay,
She's
call for
laughing.
the, reading of the ordinance approving the sale of the property, I wish I could remember the address.
1202 South Street.
1202 South Street.
Bill number 2022-171, an ordinance approving a special warranty deed for the sale of property commonly known as 1202 South Stewart Avenue from the city of Sedalia, Missouri to Melville Enterprises LLC.
Reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Bill number 2022-171, an ordinance approving a special warranty deed for the sale of property commonly known as 1202 South Stewart Avenue from the city of Sedalia, Missouri to Melville Enterprises LLC.
Final passage.
Roll call, please.
Bliss?
No.
Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Oldham?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Bogus?
Yes.
Cross?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
6 yes and 1 no.
All right, now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Thank you.